I'm Eva O, and this is the Teakink podcast. I've been a dominatrix since 2011, and I would like to spill the tea on my life. Thank you for listening. Plastic surgery. I've had 2 procedures. Can you guess what they are? Maybe I'll tell you by the end of the episode. Way to get you to listen or watch. But where did my relationship with plastic surgery or cosmetic procedures begin? I'd always sort of understood that it was a thing. Dolly Parton was one of my favorite musical artists when I was a child. And I remember I told a friend of my mother's this in the car once, and she looked back at me and she said, "You know that she has breast implants, right?" As if that would have discouraged me from my great enthusiasm about Dolly Parton. And I think even then I remember just looking at her thinking about why that was relevant. And said, yeah, I have an idea of what that is and that she has them. But I love Dolly Parton. And I have a very similar standpoint at this point in time, in that I kind of find those choices irrelevant to the totality of who somebody is. And in the case of Dolly, her vivaciousness really had won me over, even at the age of, I think I was 4 or 5. But when I started to really understand what cosmetic surgery was much later in maybe my 20s. It really wasn't something that crossed my mind growing up. It wasn't maybe as much of an option as it is readily available as it is now. And I only really understood that I had access to the potential of it when I joined the sex industry, because it was so present in almost anyone that had been able to earn past a certain level of, I guess, hitting some survival targets when it came to things monetarily. And even then, I think there's definitely some people who will budget it in even when times are really tough, because of how much anyone, even outside of the industry, has the pressure of looking at themselves physically and judging themselves accordingly. But I didn't really engage with it until COVID, actually, when I was home, like all of us, more than usual. And I had more time to look at the wrinkles in my neck, at the sagging of the skin, at the way that my jowls had maybe dropped more than the last time that I had a proper look. And I guess that and the visual mediums that are so much a part of our everyday, that are so much a part of how we communicate, social media, all of this compounded has really made it quite a difficult scenario for us in terms of understanding our value, our priorities, and how integral that we want to weave them in with our visual appearance and how we present on these communication mediums. When I first went into a cosmetic whatever sort of office, it was my second year in the sex industry. So I was 26, 27, and it was on the suggestion or recommendation of my manager. I'm not sure if she would want to be named. Yeah. She's fabulous and looks absolutely incredible. And very much goes for the procedures often, and suggested that I visit her doctor. And this was not surgical at this point. This was more the cosmetic things like fillers and Botox and skin stuff, perhaps. And we did this skin sort of analysis. And I mean, I was 26 and mostly Asian, so I was just crazy full of collagen. There wasn't much to do. Like you couldn't even see my bone structure because like there was just all of this baby fat or collagen or whatever, just like covering all of these little bits of cheekbone that you can now see. And so we didn't actually end up doing anything except for preventative Botox around my eyes a little bit. And I mean, if you had injected any filler, you probably wouldn't have seen much amount. Yeah, at that point. But then that huge gap sort of happened. And yeah, sure, I was face in, as in I wasn't advertising my full face on the ads. I didn't have social media for a large part of my career. And so maybe I wasn't as confronted with what my face looked like that much. And I also didn't think about really what my body looked like that much. And maybe also because I had danced, I understood that you could move it in a certain way to make it look a certain way if you were going to photograph it. Look quite different to how you were when you were just sort of hanging out freely. But it was definitely, you know, the creep of the social media when I started seeing my peers really go for the fillers and the Botox and the nose jobs and mostly nose jobs, actually. And then there was a point in time when people were trying the threads, which sort of like pull you up here and there. And it was like really young folk also that I was seeing doing that around me. And maybe it's because, no, actually, when I first started to get on social media, it would have been what, like, maybe it's 2025 now. Maybe it would have been like 8 or 9 years ago, 8 years ago. And I didn't really see that happening as much. I think it was definitely more around the 5-year mark where it really felt like everybody had done something. And at this point, I think I still hadn't really gone for anything yet. But during COVID, there I am, probably watching a lot of television more than anything, which I never ever do. So that was quite unusual for me. So maybe seeing those people, kind of checking them out on social media after that. And I was in Indonesia at the time, Bali, and so a lot of, like, everything was pretty much open, even though people couldn't come and go. And so there were some cosmetic places that were also open. And so I went to a very similar office, like the one that my manager had sent me to, but in Indonesia. And I asked what we could do about these wrinkles in my neck. And there's like maybe slight sagging of the jowl. And they suggested that I do some sort of radio frequency sort of machine and what was it? Like microneedling, and that they could fill the lines with filler. And I think I went with the machine and microneedling. And with the microneedling, I saw some improvement, but I couldn't really tell with the other stuff. And around the same time, I also started exercising, which very sadly, and I say very sadly because it bores me to death, which very sadly seems to be the thing that works the best. After really kind of attacking the exercise like 3 times a week, 3, 4 times a week, I saw an improvement in the damn neck and the damn jowls. More than the after effects of the cosmetic stuff. But from there, the upward trajectory, I didn't really do any fillers still at this point in time. I think augmentation was still a little bit of a weird concept for me, even though I started understanding that a lot of people around me, like, and even some people who had nothing to do with a visual job, like some of my old friends who were maybe in government jobs or whatever, they were doing the Botox and the fillers and the skin stuff and however. Also, so 5 years ago, I realized that exercise, unfortunately, has been the best thing for my skin. And microneedling definitely works. So I do still do a thing of that every year, like 2 to 4, depending on how much I want to go back for the appointment. And now I've added sort of this thing, like I did like the salmon DNA thing, pRNA. I tried that once. That was pretty good. And then I've tried the exosomes lately, and that's pretty good. So I kind of like do that once a year now. And then one more year kind of creeps up. You know, like we're kind of coming out of COVID now. I'm out of Indonesia. I'm in England. So many people have had stuff down here. I'm like, all right, let me ask you for your doctor. Let's just try something. And I try a little bit of filler. This is like four years ago, in like the corners of my jaw and the chin and the bottom lip, and in this like sort of nasolabial sort of area and my temples. And I see a slight difference, but like it was expensive. It was really crazy expensive. And I don't know whether it was really worth it. Because it like, I maybe it also, I don't know. They say that it stays forever, right? And at least in little bits. I felt that my temples went down, and that really did help. So I did get that redone once since then, maybe like a year or so ago. But I don't have anything else right now going on in here, unless it's just stayed. And then, yeah, but the Botox has been quite nice. Yeah. The Botox has been quite interesting because I guess once they sort of erase stuff and you see it looking like the filter, you're like, okay, now I'm kind of attached to that. The fact that I didn't have any little dimples in my chin for a while, I quite liked it. And I don't like that they're back now. So let's keep going with that. At least that is slightly more affordable. And then also, maybe now, because it's Botox adjacent, now is the time to reveal the surgical stuff. So I also realized that a hell of a lot of people around me were getting breast implants. And, you know, I was doing well that year. So I found somebody on the internet who an acquaintance had gone to, and it was going to be my first surgical procedure. And I don't know, did I think it would be my last? I'm not sure. But I wanted to do it locally in London. So not like this traveling stuff. It kind of freaked me out, thinking, oh, it's my first one. What could go wrong, etc. And so I found a surgeon in London and saw the beautiful results and booked it like pretty like spur of the moment. Like within the month, I had a surgical date that somebody had dropped out on. And yeah, I did like the biggest ones that he recommended. He goes for the natural look, so the biggest ones for my body shape, and I'm very happy with them. Like the recovery was hell for my partner. It was great for me. I couldn't lift my arms for a couple of weeks, and he fed me water through a straw that he bought. So sweet. A set of straws, and for 2 weeks, like I didn't drink water by myself even. It was great. Yeah, and they are so fabulous. I go get checked once a year, and I feel very comforted that this office is like near to where I live and everything. And I feel like I got a good reaction out of my clients and people before with the revelation of the body, maybe during a session or something. But has it been worth it? Like, have people been going crazy over the tits more so since I got them? Yeah, sort of. Like, I would say that they go pretty crazy over nudity in general. But I feel like I look better. I like how I look with the extra tits these days. And so I've been pretty happy about that investment for sure. And they say you have to replace them every 10 years. My doctor said that he usually only ends up replacing it when people want them out, which can be up to 20 years sometimes. But anyway, I get checked all the time. But what is the second procedure that I did? That is Botox adjacent, even. So, after I did this procedure, the second and currently only other procedure, who knows where we'll go from here, I started noticing the like lines in my forehead. And I didn't have that at all before, at least not that I noticed. But it's because I got my forehead shortened. Maybe some of you could tell. And actually, the whole process of this was because a lot of people around me were getting BBLs from the butt to the forehead. I'll tell you how we got there. And I thought, okay, I've been working like mad at the damn gym. And yeah, it's definitely larger, but I feel like I would like to fill out these little like parts that I just can't sort of reach, like these little parts around the side. Like hip dips, I think they're called. And they did fill out a bit with the workout, but after speaking to the doctor, there's only like so much you can sort of do with that because there's, I don't know, there's not something there enough for it to get larger. Anyway, and so I go for a consultation with somebody here that was recommended by somebody who had it here. And he basically tells me that, you know, I sort of have enough fat to maybe make 1 centimeter of difference, but the fallout of that, like the way that I saw my friends recovering from that one, it looked like absolute hell. It didn't really feel like double-digit numbers paying for something and going through hell in like these compression garments for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and not being able to. It all sounds so ridiculous when you weave it into sentences, doesn't it? Oh, what should we do to feel certain ways, huh? And I think that it's pretty magical that we're able to access this kind of stuff. But like with everything, I like to be able to think about the motivations and whether they are viable for me and where they kind of sit in the world. Right? And so I'm in this doctor's office. He's telling me that I'd have to get fat taken from back here and like maybe around my hips, which I love my damn hips. I think they're great. Yeah. I kind of want to keep that. I didn't know that was fat. But and that he would move them to those little hip dips and we'd get like an extra centimeter after the fat went down 50%. And I thought, this is probably not worth it. But you know, I'm kind of in the mood now. Kind of in the mood. I have thought that maybe I could do this other procedure that I've sort of thought about for a few years once I found out that it was a thing. And usually it's something to do with facial feminization when they sort of take like the brow bone down and then they lower the hairline, and apparently that like feminizes your features. But I've had a very large forehead, I mean, my whole life, and it really didn't bother me, but I thought aesthetically maybe could make a change. And then I find out about this, like the thirds of the face thing. And then I'm starting to measure like the thirds of my face. And is it proportional? Because that's what things like are seen as beautiful. And yeah. So how do I feel? How do I feel about my process and journey through this? I mean, I love the results. I'm very happy with the tits and the forehead and how that sort of makes my face look younger. But like, why do I want to look younger? And why am I now so concerned with the texture of my skin? And is it because that I don't want the change? Am I resistant to a change? Am I like really liking the reactions to people when they say how young I look? Like, why does that matter to me? Like, does it matter to me? I guess on a little level, it's nice to get those sorts of positive words from other people, even if that framework doesn't come from a great place. It's like, why do we only prize the aesthetic of youth? Right? I guess if we think of what we've been told in terms of biological draws, it's about the breedability of youth, and that being something that is aesthetically coveted because of reproduction. I mean, it all sounds so clinical. And is it really? Is it really the only truth? No, because I definitely meet people who want to be with those who are aging more, who want to see those wrinkles on a woman. Oh, that's another topic, isn't it? The way that femmes are not supposed to age versus the masks. Do we want to get into that yet? Maybe not that just yet. Maybe let's wrap up on my procedures first. So yes, I have gotten the tits. I lowered the forehead. I can't really justify getting the butt. I do the Botox because now I feel like maybe the area has gotten smaller. Now I can see the wrinkles. And maybe I start to get attached to a certain skin texture and look of my face and body, and I'm hanging on to the wanting to not change, and or I love a project. But let's stop and think. Why are all of us doing it? Has it become more affordable? I think that these things are still pricey. And I don't do a lot of, like, I would like to do more skin stuff, but I can't justify paying like hundreds of pounds so regularly for the skin boosters and stuff. Even though I have seen it make a difference, it seems wasteful. So I guess I do have an upper limit. I've also considered stuff like the stuff that makes your muscles sort of stronger. I think it can also get rid of fat, but I kind of am more interested in making things larger. But yeah, what have been my motivations for this? I tell myself that I like a result, but maybe let's dig a little deeper. Has my job influenced this? Would I be so driven to spending this sort of money on everything if I wasn't on camera as much? I think with the way that I've seen my friends not in the industry move, I think it's highly likely that it would still have become a larger presence in my life, and that we've all kind of gone this way, probably largely due to how quickly information about procedures can travel. And do I think that's necessarily a bad thing? No, I'm pretty happy with what I've been up to with the physical changes. And I think that if you're worth doesn't kind of hang on one item individually, one item maybe being the physical in this case, then it's not necessarily something that is going to tear us down as a society. And I think what more so tears us down, which ends up being a common theme when I do these solo episodes, is the lack of self-critique in a way that helps us engage with how we are living our lives as opposed to beating ourselves up about things. And then do we want to talk about the femme versus the mask aging? Maybe I'll save that for a whole other episode. But am I going to start to embrace, like, a part of me really wants to be able to hit the MILF, like, genre hard. And I feel like I've already gotten a few things, so I definitely am not in, like, the 20s bracket visually to people, which I'm absolutely cool with. So maybe I can just go for it. I mean, people are calling me mommy on the dating apps already, aren't they? So time to monetize. But now you know what I've been up to under the knife and how I feel about it. And I'm probably not going to do anything else for a little while. Maybe like a little mini like cheek lift, because my family sort of droop from here down, but not really anything up. So I don't really want to go for any full changes. I like how things look. I'm happy with it. And I mean, if I could be bothered doing the makeup more, I probably would be even happier with what can be done with my face. But I'm very lazy to learn how to do that properly. Yeah. This is a much lighter episode than I thought it would be, but I guess my relationship with it is much lighter than I thought it could be. We can definitely think about how slammed we are with the visual and how we can start to obsess about these things. But I think also priorities across society move across time. And am I justifying my current interest? Maybe, but it feels pretty good. And I have a very well-rounded, I think, experience of life. And I don't feel like I obsess over it too much. I definitely go through phases where I'll follow a hashtag about a certain procedure, but I catch myself doing it. And the last time I came out of surgery for the forehead, like, it didn't feel pleasant. I actually really like general anesthetic. Love the surrender. Love the surrender to an expert. But yeah, like, kind of healing from the procedures is never easy. I think I'm pretty tough in how I navigate my body and the things it goes through. But like taking all of the pills, like being a percentage version of what you're used to, moving slower in the world, thoughts fragmented. I stopped following every plastic surgery account during my last recovery period, and I've started sort of looking at them again now. It's been 2 months. So, I mean, eventually, I kind of envision a world where we're all going to be augmented in some way anyway, you know, whether it's going to be some sort of interface between our neurocells and the outside world, or whether it's going to be an enhancement to the information that we get. And now we have it in the phones, we have it in glasses, but like maybe we can have like ear implants. So I kind of feel like the aesthetic versions of that are sort of a precursor to the more highly technological versions of what we might eventually be. So maybe it's also my love of sci-fi that is kind of making this episode much more comfortable than I thought it would be. So maybe it's just been a plastic surgery reveal more than anything. But we got some thoughts in there. And yeah, I hope that you take your time if you're going to do any of these things to really like look at the platforms that do proper reviews and like verified reviews and ask for personal recommendations if you are going to follow this thing, and make sure that your finances are in order and that you're prioritizing according to your needs and things like this before just like going into debt for something, unless you feel like it's going to really add to your life, and maybe a little bit like be a little bit critical about what your motivations are, so that even if they are that I feel really shitty about how I'm looking and I really want to like do something about that, I mean, that means that it's more than just the visual, right? It's like it's emotive, but then also think about why, and remember that these are all constructed standards and they shift and they move, and it's not entirely on you, but the way that the world is formed, and that we can both do the surgery and keep the focus on understanding what we value and why we value it. And yeah, and just kind of interface with our world in as holistic a fashion as we possibly can. And yeah, maybe I'll update you when I do the cheek lift. Probably only in a few years, so I think I'm still good. But thank you for listening to my reveal, and speak to you next time.